Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Respino, and today I'm here with Dan Nicholson. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Cesar. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. So let me introduce you to our listeners and viewers. Dan is the CEO of nthdegree CPAs, which has been awarded one of the America's best ran accounting firms in the past. Dan has done everything from managing hedge funds and helping Microsoft with their books, but has always been an entrepreneur at heart. Man, that's pretty awesome. So I actually want to tap into that. Before we do that, though, I want to know more about your upbringing and kind of like take me back. Where are you originally from, and how was that for you upgrowing?
Yeah, I'm from a suburb of the Seattle area called Renton. And it's changed quite a bit since I grew up. It used to be kind of a, let's just say, middle class, lower to middle class neighborhood. Most of our neighbors, like my dad was a journeyman machinist. My mom was a lunch lady after I got to my teenage years. So it was just like a really blue collar community. A lot of folks who worked for Boeing. Which had a plant in Renton. Now, because of Microsoft and Amazon and all the tech companies that are in Seattle, Renton has changed quite a bit from what I grew up, and it's been much more gentrified. But I really associate with more of a blue collar kind of community, just from my upbringing, growing up in Renton, and what my dad and mom did.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's pretty awesome. And so let me ask you this. Growing up, did you ever had any idea of what you wanted to do as you got older?
Yeah. So I was very much the kid scheming on business ideas. It was kind of a weird, I was also a painfully shy kid. I had a speech problem, had years of speech therapy. Had to learn how to swallow the right way. I still have something called tongue thrust, but it impacted my speech and terrible teeth and all that. So I was just a painfully shy kid. I still have moments where I'm painfully shy, but
yeah.
It's kind of this weird thing where I had this entrepreneurial desire, and I'm always scheming on business ideas. And being an entrepreneur requires you to kind of put yourself out there, right? Especially as a kid, lemonade stand or paper route or those things. And so I was always kind of dealing with wanting to put myself out there, but at the same point having a lot of anxiety as kind of like a painfully shy kid. But always thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I actually got an accounting degree and an information systems degree, technology accounting. So I just thought that's going to be the best skill set to be an entrepreneur. Not at all thinking I would do anything in accounting.
Yeah, right. Where did that come about? Like, where did the idea came or the inspiration of you becoming an entrepreneur?
I think, it's a good question. So, to get a little bit personal, I guess, and my dad was homeless basically or on his own since he was 14, 15 years old. He went to 12 different schools growing up. My mom is the oldest of a couple siblings, and she basically raised her younger siblings. And so I saw them, in particular, what they crave was stability. And so my dad worked totally loyal to this company until they went bankrupt. And he's relatively well known in the machinist industry for being a craftsman. And he would get these opportunities, but because for a variety of reasons, he would turn them down. And I don't know, something within me just felt bothered, I guess, by seeing my parents not necessarily be able to pursue the life that they wanted. And maybe that's not entirely fair to say. Like they're happy and content and stable and all of that. But something about feeling like they were being held back because of their history. Like my dad is, even though I've worked in with a bunch of really smart people to this day, his dad is probably the smartest person that I know. It's just because of his upbringing and craving stability and giving me and my sister a different life. He didn't have the same opportunities. And I guess to me, I never want to be held back. Like I want to be able to define my own future, set my own terms. And to me, that I know it's just been inside of me from a very long time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely. And so there's some things that I'm kind of interested to know from your perspective. You know, you talked about, being around a lot of smart people and, people that obviously may have a lot more things going on for themselves, for in terms of just like the vision and what they're trying to do in their life, right? So how critical is that, even with what you're doing now? Because obviously that's not one thing that, I mean, at least not for me when I was growing up and going to school. I mean, people will tell you, yeah, hang around with the right crowd kind of thing, but it was never really defined as to why that's important. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost. People get lost in the translation of going through school, whether it's high school or college, and not never really understanding why associations or the people you're hanging around with are so critical. How do you see that now in your perspective?
Yeah, I think if you're a growth-minded person, you're always straddling between two buckets. You're straddling between folks who you've left behind because they've stopped growing and you're continually in pursuit. And then you're with people who you're trying to catch up to. So it's inherently, if you're growth-minded, you're leaving some people behind. There's nothing wrong with it. Sometimes people they get upset with their friends or family or clients. So it's not their fault. They're not doing anything wrong. You're growing and evolving. And so you've got that bucket of people, and then you've got the people you're trying to catch up to. And so if you're growth minded, you're always straddling between the two. To me, having the person who's ahead of you, and I learned this from my coach, folks try and find purpose. And purpose is really important, but often for most of us, we don't even know what our purpose is. You ask them, hey, what's your purpose or what's your why? And they're like, I don't know. And so to me, it starts with repetition. I took this from my coach, Randy Massengale. Repetition leads to intensity. Intensity leads to purpose. And so surrounding yourself with the right people means you're getting the reps. You're getting the right reps in with the right people. And from there, you pick up the intensity and then you find your purpose. But if you're getting the reps in with the wrong people, then you're building the wrong habits, the wrong mindset, the wrong skill set. And maybe your intensity picks up, but it's sort of like you got bad, and think about like exercise or something. It's like you've been using bad form the entire time. You're doing more reps. Now you're doing more weight. Okay, now you're going to get injured, right? And so to me, it's getting the right reps with the right people, increasing your intensity. Then you find purpose, and you're going to be directed down a better path as a result.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's actually pretty interesting. You mentioned, even just having a mentor or some sort of coach, and I think that's part of the dynamics of being around the differentiator between a particular group of people and a different group of people, and going back to that growth mindset. That's actually, and then the other thing too is understanding that purpose. What is your why? I believe that there's certain people that they struggle with that the rest of their life. Like it's hard to find that purpose, or it's hard to find that why. Obviously, like, as you mentioned, repetition, intensity leads to purpose. But if you were to take that further back, like what is your advice to tell somebody that's watching or listening to this saying, hey, if you start maybe, this way or that way, or here's what you can do. Like, what is your advice in terms of trying to start seeking and finding that purpose? Because I often hear people like, I don't know what I know I want to change. I know I need to do better. I know I need to do this. I know I need to do that. I just still don't understand and have not been able to find myself. Like, I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, every system is perfectly designed to create the outcome that it's currently generating. So if you're not getting the outcomes that you want, you got to either find a new system or change the inputs. And I see that chasing of the tail as well around trying to find purpose. I've just trying to mentor my own staff and ask them what their goals are. And it's a daunting question because especially when you're younger, if you don't know yourself, it's like I still have to kind of figure out who I am before I can figure out what I want. And there ends up being, it actually can be self-defeating for folks to ask them their purpose, because if they don't know it, then they go down some sort of shame spiral. So yeah, here's what I've learned, this trick. Can I play a game with you?
Yeah, for sure.
So Cesar, what did you have a favorite sport or hobby growing up?
Growing up, I would say definitely soccer.
Soccer. What was it that you liked about soccer?
I would say everybody was doing it, and that was like the popular type of thing to do as a kid. So I just got drawn into it.
What what position did you play?
Nothing in particular. I was just really I guess I don't know what the different positions, but just literally just getting the ball and kicking the ball and taking it, from point A to point B.
What would you say was like your style of play? Just all out, kind of energy, play as hard as you can.
Yeah, definitely energy. Just play as hard as I can. Just give it all I can. Yeah.
And how would you compare that to what your style is in business?
Very similar, actually, in terms of going out and just trying different things. And when I set my mind on doing something, then I definitely just play full out.
Yeah, awesome. So the hack, if you will, is first off is knowing who you are. Before you can know your purpose, you have to know who you are. I call it playing your game.
Okay.
So many folks are trying to play somebody else's game. And what's the point? Business is hard enough. Life is hard enough. And then if you have to be somebody else on top of it, it's like, that sucks. Yeah. That's not particularly fun. So to me, before you can find your purpose, you got to figure out who you are. What's your style? What's the game you're trying to play? And again, I learned this from mentors, but if you, that game I just played with you almost works every time, which is, what's your favorite sport or hobby? And typically what I find is it's whatever someone's style of play is in their favorite sport or hobby is the style that they're going to have in business and in life. And it's going to be when they're feeling the most alive and the most rewarded by it. It's when you try and play somebody else's game, it's like you're playing out of position. And when someone plays out of position, right, it's like, wow, they were an all-star over here. I'm a basketball guy. So it's like, hey, they were an all-star as a point guard, but now we're asking them to be a shooting guard. And their play is really dropped off because they're out of position. It's the same thing in business. If you're trying to play somebody else's game, you're out of position. And you probably don't feel as rewarded, as happy. So rather than trying to play someone else's game, play your game. Increase the repetition of your game, your style. Find the intensity. You'll find the purpose from there playing your game. So rather than so it's play to your weaknesses and rather than your strengths. Or I'm sorry, play to your strengths rather than your weaknesses.
Yeah, definitely. And then this leads to what you have here. You said the power of rigging the game in your favor and taking calculated risk, right? And so we kind of talked about that, but is there more that you can elaborate to that? Because I think that's actually pretty awesome what you just mentioned there. Yeah,
so I have what I call the 4 commandments of financial certainty. Really what I do, my whole thing is helping people achieve certainty, financial certainty in particular, but just certainty in general. That's what I feel like people are really in search of. And so the dynamic complexity of certainty is that what you want and what I want are different. And I could meet another Cesar that is the same age, grew up in the same neighborhood. All the facts are the same, And what's best for you would be different than what's best for that person because you have different preferences, different priorities. And so I built this whole operating system around how to achieve certainty, and specifically financial certainty. And so first off, we have to, commandment 1, we have to bias closer is greater than more. So we think that more is the answer to everything, more employees, more clients, more revenue. But it may get us further away from the things that we really want. So really every action should get us closer to what we want. Otherwise, what's the point? If I want more time, hiring another employee might get me further away from that, actually. Each direct report requires 4 hours on average of management. So adding another employee, if I need more time right now, might actually be the worst thing. So closer is greater than more. We have to know what we actually want. Have to understand the difference between preference and binary. So some people like mayonnaise. Personally, I think mayonnaise is the worst condiment ever made. That's a preference, right? No right or wrong.
Right.
But if people try and treat their decisions like they're binary, like you could just go Google, should I grow my business? Should I have a family? Should I have kids? It's like, I don't know. What do you want? So we really have to understand what we actually want, which is part of playing your game. And then we have to understand every business decision is a financial decision. So people try and act, and just almost every life decision is also a financial decision. We somehow try and separate the two, and it becomes a trap. And then lastly, and this is the risk piece, is that business in particular is gambling. We're trying to make the house usually wins. Most people know they fail more than they don't. So the house usually wins. We need to make asymmetric bets where the upside is greater than the downside. Most business owners are making bets where the downside is greater than the upside. You know, I'm either going to make 100 grand or I'm going to be homeless. Well, I would argue being homeless is worse than making 50 or 100 grand. Or they make a bet where the return is, the upside is equal to the downside. I bet $1 so I could make $2. Really, we want to be making bets where we're going to get a 20, 50, 100x return, because money is not infinite. We have limited resources. And if I make a bet over here, an investment, my time and resources now tied up. I've now taken all these other options off the table for a while. So we need sort of this operating system, this set of assumptions that we can go back to and go, okay, this is should I grow my business? Okay, well, what are my priorities right now? I built a whole tool called the Certainty app where you can basically make this a solvable equation. We go, okay, I want more time. It's my number one priority. So if I'm going to hire someone, does that help me get closer to that priority or further away? And so it's a tool. Sorry about that. So we have to go back to our priorities and figure out, is that action that we're trying to take actually going to get us closer to the things we want or further away? Is this bet an asymmetric bet to the upside or not? So on and so forth.
That's definitely interesting, and I love that. And so with this app, you're able to kind of get an idea, and it'll kind of give you a direction of perhaps probably more in the financial side of it, where to lean towards, or just uncertainty, just where to take your next steps.
Yeah, the app does two things, and as far as I know, it's the only app that connects businesses with personal finance. If you're running a closely held business, like most of us are, most businesses are small businesses. The business exists to serve us and our family. And so we really shouldn't separate what the business does from how it's serving you getting closer to what you want. So step one is what I call taking your vision board and turning it into a solvable equation, creating your unique wealth algorithm. So we put in all of your priorities. There's 3 core priorities that are financial security related: pay off debt, fund reserves, fund retirement. And then there's all the preferences, the things unique to you, things like time off, travel, legacy, second home, boats, whatever it may be. We put all those in, but we put a date and a dollar value to it. So when do we want to achieve it by, and how much will it cost? And then we sync all your assets and your cash flow. And it tells us, kind of like Google Maps would, are we able to hit those targets? And if not, how much more do we need to make? And now that we know how much more we need to make, now we can strategically go and close the gap. Right. So Google Maps tells us it's going to take us 10 hours to get there.
Right.
What if we took these shortcuts? What if we drove faster? What if we didn't take breaks? So on and so forth. So it's trying to take your vision board, make it a solvable equation, so that when you make a decision in business or in life, you can see how that's going to close the gap, get you closer, or how it might get you further away.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I'm assuming the idea of getting to and creating this certain app came really from your own life experience. And so I guess one of my questions to you is, by creating this app and trying to put something out where people can really utilize from that, what has been some of your own lessons that you've learned by putting in something such as this out into the world?
Yeah, you're right that I built this app, and almost everything that I have done with the whole concept of certainty has been to scratch my own itch, kind of solve my own problems, and not want to feel like I lived a life. I didn't want the cliche deathbed moment, I guess, where you're like, oh, I wish that I did all these things. And
yeah, right.
So I've wanted to live this life of purpose. And a couple of years ago, I spoke at a CFO conference. There were 300 or 400 CFOs there. And what I realized in that moment was all these CFOs, and myself included, we were making, there's this universal common trend, which is we were making recommendations, but we didn't feel like the client could see the value behind it. It's like, I just saved you $100,000 in taxes, or I just helped you generate, $3 million more in profits. I'm just picking arbitrary examples. And the client isn't seeing the benefit of it. And that's when I had this aha moment of, because you're not connecting it to what they actually want. Mm-hmm. You may have saved them $100,000 in taxes, but that $100,000 it was already in their account. It may have already been spent. In fact, it just means they don't have to give it to the IRS. We have to show them how to take that money and reallocate it to their priorities. And this can be done the Certainty app can be used by any consultant, because the reality is, as a consultant, if you're helping them with marketing, if you're helping them with operations, if you're helping them with IT, how can I show you that by working with me, I got you closer to what you want? By implementing this solution, I helped you shave 2 years off of funding your retirement. Like, that means much more to me as someone who's purpose-driven than just arbitrary money. It's not to say I'm opposed to having more money, but knowing that got me 2 years closer to the ultimate, goal is much more powerful. Creates a much more sticky relationship with your clients. So it was sort of the realization of how the work I was doing was really just a commodity if I didn't connect it back to what my clients actually wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So just looking back to where you're at now, what have been, some of the learnings or teachings you've learned throughout? Because I know being in business, being an entrepreneur, taking, as you said, you wanted to kind of create this certainty for yourself. There's a lot of failures. There's a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of times you fall down. And I always tell people that the only true failure in life is when you start trying and when you stop trying and doing, right? Just because you fail and you fall down doesn't mean that that's a failure. Although people perceive it as that, it's not necessarily one. It's that the minute you give up. For you though, what have been some of those teachings or lessons you've taken from that?
First 5 years of running my accounting firm, I did not play my game. I may have had small moments in time where I was, but I was trying to be someone else that I wasn't. And so there were a ton of failures along the way where we would have, cash flow would be trending up. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, what's going on? Right? I'm playing someone else's game. I'm fighting against, industry rhythms. So where I'm trying to do something that this just isn't going to work in the CPA space. May and June are going to be the lowest sales months for most CPA firms in terms of new business, because people have fatigue from the previous months. And I would try and fight against that industry rhythm rather than try and rig the game to win. Don't fight against it. Set up the system to take into account that reality. So I wasn't playing my game, and I was fighting against industry rhythms or setting up business decisions where I was not kind of rigging the game to win. And then about 5 years ago, I bought another practice, another CPA firm. So we acquired one to add to our existing business. Biggest failure in my career. Almost sold our firm during it. It was completely miserable. The clients that I acquired, naively, we thought, okay, we're buying this practice where the firm owner is doing no strategic planning for their clients. They're just cranking out tax returns, and he's got 500 or 600 clients. So we'll bring them on. We'll give them the updated systems. We'll offer them all this additional planning. And, it's like millionaire math. If we just converted 20% of our clients, the multiple would be XYZ, and it's complete failure, because what I didn't account for and what I've learned since is that they weren't opting into this transaction. They were completely content with what was happening up to that point. And so they had no desire to change. And that's when I started to really build out this whole idea of certainty, understanding how to make asymmetric bets, how to take into account social norms versus market norms. I built out this sort of, there's the 4 commandments of financial certainty, but I have these 12 principles that I use to process issues. Almost all of those came from almost selling my business out of being completely miserable after acquiring that practice.
Wow. Yeah. That definitely. And again, it takes that resilience, and it takes the idea of keep moving forward, keep going, right, and not giving in or giving up to the setbacks and whatever normally people will perceive as failures, right? Yeah. And so it's really just going through that.
I wish I came up with this, but I also have to credit my coach Randy Massengale on this again.
Okay. Yeah.
You either take it and you put it in your trunk and you drag it around for the rest of your life, or you take it and you put it in your tank and you use it as fuel to push you forward. And so those people who are exceptional leaders and who grow their businesses and achieve their priorities, they don't put it in the trunk. They put, and I did for a while. I had a little bit of self-loathing, but ultimately I took those failures, I put it in my tank, and I've used it as fuel to solve my own problems and carry me forward. So it's a gut check. Am I going to put this in my trunk, or am I going to put it in my tank?
I definitely like that. So let me ask you this. Obviously, you've gone through a lot, and I just want to know: do you have any habits? Tony Robbins refers to them as rituals, but do you have any habits, daily habits that you do to kind of keep you in a positive mindset, to keep you moving forward? Like, are there any habits you do daily, for the most part, just to kind of get you through, day by day?
Yeah. Good question. So my approach to life is sort of like a cognitive behavior therapy type approach, which is we tend to go from chaos to rigidity, and then from rigidity back to chaos, right? And so what I try and stop that back and forth. It's like yo-yo dieting type thing. And so I have some core kind of building blocks of things that I do. It's changed a little bit during COVID, but I basically wake up when my kids come in to my room, or my wife and I's room, which is usually around 6:40, 6:45. So I don't set an alarm. And
that's your alarm. Your kids are your alarm.
That's my alarm, but they come in roughly around that time. And I learned this from Dr. Jeff Spencer, which is you kind of spend the first 10 to 15 minutes letting yourself wake up, thinking about the day, thinking about what is the effect that I'm trying to cause today. So what is the effect I want to have on my family, on my clients, on my staff? What is that? So I kind of let myself kind of ease into the day and think about that. what is the effect I'm going to try and cause today. And I go downstairs. I have about 15, 20 minutes where I mull about and get stuff ready for the family without any particular intent or focus. I'm just letting my mind and body wake up. I'm fortunate that I have a world-class concierge doctor, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. If you're not following her, you should. And so she's kind of optimized my nutrition and health. And so I've got kind of a supplement routine and diet routine that I kind of go through. And then I just try and enjoy the next hour as much as I can with my kids. So because I know once I get to the office, I'm going to hit it hard, I'm trying to ease in. And so then from basically 9 to 4, I'm locked in. I'm locked in on the work and what is it that we're going to accomplish for the week. So I have what is the theme for the week and what is the theme for the month? And then what is the theme for the year? So my themes, one of my themes for this year, for example, is relentless curiosity, and then relentless, blanking on the word, being relentlessly present. So relentlessly curious and relentlessly present. So I'm trying to be really present with my kids.
Yep.
Trying to be really present when I'm at work, which is actually really hard for me. My head is I'm usually thinking about like 10 different things, like most of us. I don't think that's unique, but it's really hard for me to be present. So try and focus on what is the effect I'm trying to cause? What is my theme for the year? Then working backwards, quarter, and then for the week. From 4 to 5, I exercise. 5 to 6, I wrap up some work, and then the rest of the night is sort of family time, and so that's sort of the schedule.
Yeah, and I think that's again, I like the concept of having and creating some sort of a routine or a schedule or discipline. Maybe that's a better word to say. It's a discipline that you're building in your own life, and I think that once you take that discipline to the level where you kind of understand what you have going on a day-to-day basis, I believe that you can definitely get further, a lot faster too, right, in life.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, it starts with just getting the right repetition, get the right reps in. And what is it you're trying to, if soccer was your default sport, or I'd just go with basketball, it's like, just get some shots up, just get some kicks in at the goal, and then get more intense about it.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're not putting up the shots every day, then you're not going to get better. So oftentimes we just try and focus too much on the outcome rather than just going like, I need to get some shots up.
You know what? That's actually a good point that you mentioned. A lot of times we want that outcome. We want whatever that money on the bank account. We want that relationship. We want whatever that might be. Yet we forget to take the actions to get to that level, right? So 100%. Again, you focus so much on the outcome that you forget to do the little steps that sometimes they're not even that big of a step. It's like, just pick up the phone. Hey, just go talk to that guy, or go talk to that girl, or whatever that might be. Put together a business plan, journal for 5 seconds. Think about that idea. Those little actions will lead to that ultimate goal. But you're right. We definitely get hung up on living in the future without taking actions today in the present. Yeah. Right. Dan, if people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, probably the best place to find me is at either Certainty App or CertaintyBook.com. Certainty App, Certainty Book. That's the entryway into the things that I'm doing.
Okay, awesome. And my last question for you is for the people that are watching us, listening to this. If they are going through any kind of challenge, whatever that challenge might be, what is one thing that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge?
Yeah. Can I give you 2 things?
Yeah, definitely.
One is that, and I wish I would have learned this much sooner in my life, but if you're feeling depressed or anxious or whatever it may be, that's fine, that there's nothing wrong with you. The mistake I've made in trying to help other people who they've told me that they're depressed or feeling anxious is to tell them that, oh, it's okay, and give them a bunch of advice. But actually what you're doing in that moment is dismissing them. You're telling them that their feelings are not actually valid. You're kind of telling them it's not okay to be depressed, or it's not okay to be anxious. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to be anxious. There's nothing wrong with you. So I think that's important. And I've tried to exercise that behavior of, if someone's anxious or depressed, to not dismiss them and tell them it's going to be, we want to tell them it's going to be okay because we love them, we care about them. And that's okay, but it's important to not make them feel like it's invalid for them to feel that way, because we all go through moments of feeling.
Right. So it's in a case like that, if somebody, comes to you or and, they're in that state of mind, do you kind of encourage them to come out and talk about it and just kind of hear them out and let them talk, speak, and feel the emotion?
Yeah, it goes back to what is the effect I'm trying to cause.
Okay.
So sometimes as a leader, the effect I'm trying to cause requires me to be front and center and do a lot of the talking and lead. But sometimes if the effect you're trying to cause means you just listen. So if someone is feeling depressed or anxious, I just want to listen, let them know I'm here for them and that they can tell me anything at any time and I'll answer their call. Like I'm here for you and anything that you need. Because the last thing I want them to do is feel like they're on their own, that they don't have anybody. So the effect I'm trying to cause in that situation is for them to know that I'm here for them and they can tell me anything, and that I will not dismiss them or make them feel like there's something wrong with them. Because I feel like if I do that, then they're not going to reach out. They're not going to talk to me. And if anything, that's going to put them deeper down a pit of despair or depression. So the effect I want to cause is you call me, text me, know that I'm available to you. And then ultimately, I think the way out is back to repetition, intensity, and then you'll find your purpose, which is, let's get some shots up. What is your game? What was your favorite sport or hobby, right? Because the reason why that game works to figure out your default style in business is usually growing up, you got to pick your favorite sport or hobby and you got to pick how you played it. Maybe you had overbearing parents and they made you play football and made you play a certain position. So sometimes we didn't have the benefit, but usually we get to choose. And so if it was basketball, go put some shots up. Go get the repetition and go play your game, right? Go get some shots up. Go. Maybe you like playing video games. Maybe you like gardening. Who knows what it is? It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. Go get some shots up. Get some repetition. You'll start to find some intensity again. From that intensity, you'll rediscover your purpose.
Yeah, I love that, because I hear this a lot too, is that sometimes when you're going through a challenging time, and again, like you said, there's no right or wrong answer. What do you like to do the most, whether it's a walk in the park, or out in nature, or playing a sport, whatever that might be, that knows that can bring you that joy or make you feel good in that moment, even when you're feeling down. If you go back in doing that, as you said, you're repeating that, and then the intensity of that is going to be coming out, which at that point you're coming and stepping out of that whatever challenging time you're going through, which then you're going to have this idea of, okay, here's what I need to do, or here are the next things I have to do, as opposed to perhaps not doing anything and just sitting down, being depressed, and or going through whatever challenge you're going through because you're not taking any action. So I really like that, and that's actually a pretty good way to get out of that. So I love that. Yeah.
And don't think that you're just going to find your purpose or your intensity right away. It may take 2 months, 6 months. That's okay. That's just you. I have found that having used that type of process in the moments where I am feeling depressed or anxious, or there's just something that sets me off, that now I know if I just go back, if I go get some shots up and I keep doing that, then I'll come out the other end. So that I know that now sucks. It's not ideal. And I know that I will come back around.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'll come back around, but I know that I will, as long as I get in the reps, and eventually I find the intensity, and then eventually I find my purpose again.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Dan, thank you again for dropping some great knowledge to us. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, I just always tell people, play your game, because otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being here again. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you check out Dan. Go to his website. I will be having that information on the comments. And please make sure you connect with him. And stay tuned for the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.